So what did they not lie about, ladies and gentlemen?
In Ottawa, a new revelation from police that about 100 children are living inside those trucks parked in front of Parliament. That's where we begin our coverage again tonight with CTV's senior political correspondent, Glenn McGregor.
Oh, won't somebody please think of the children?
What kind of an example are we setting?
Now, with enforcement of child protection laws, which in this province is the Child Youth Family Services Act, you agree that enforcement is essentially either the threat or the actual apprehension of children from parents. Is that right?
So I don't specifically recall the references to enforcement that you're speaking of. I do specifically recall us raising the issue of the potential danger that the children would be in the red zone footprint.
Lynn Callahan says it's sad police are now working with the Children's Aid Society over concerns about safety.
Through intelligence, we've also learned that almost 25% of the 418 trucks encamped in our city have children living in them, children who could be at risk during a police operation. We're working with the Children's Aid Society to ensure their welfare and safety. Finally, our message to demonstrators remains the same. Don't come. And if you do, there'll be consequences, including financial consequences for your illegal and unlawful behavior. We're concerned about cold. We're concerned about access to sanitation, the ability to shower. There's a multitude of concerns. That's why we're raising it and identifying it as something that is something we need to address. We need to have discussions with our partners in the Children's Aid Society about how we manage moving ahead.
Were you aware that the Child Aid Society of Ontario had no idea that announcement was being made and were quite unhappy about it?
So I was the one who was liaising with the Children's Aid Society, and they were. That was something in gaps we identified. That was a gap that we identified. I should have had conversations with them prior to that announcement being made.
At this point, what has the mainstream media not lied about, ladies and gentlemen?
But as a result of the announcement, we were able to work together to identify the proper mechanisms that we would use in the event that we did identify children who needed support within the red zone.
That's enough! Oh! Got it!
It's anticipated that our witnesses are going to say that the day after that announcement on February 9th is when workers from Child and Family Services started to intervene with the protest. Do you agree with that?
No, I wouldn't, because I don't believe that the Children's Aid Society of Ottawa ever directly engaged or intervened in the protest. What I do understand is that we set up mechanisms in order to be able to, in the event that there was an enforcement action and children needed to be removed and then reunited with family, we set up the processes that would be put in place for that.
But that was at the enforcement stage, as I understand it. You had set up, from my review of the records, an empty gymnasium of some kind to take children to, and then the plan was to give them back to their parents. That was what you're thinking of, is that right?
We all have to quarantine together for 2 weeks. You don't want to infect your families, do you? You were all exposed to a student here who was taken to the hospital due to COVID. Yes.
We were there, and Token was actually taken to the hospital because you guys shot him.
Yes, due to COVID. If it weren't for COVID, all the previous teachers would have still been here, we wouldn't have been in the class, and nobody would have gotten shot. It was COVID related.
That doesn't make any sense.
So I didn't develop that specific plan, so you'll need to ask the planning team what the specific plan was.
Okay. That's right. They were going to kidnap the protesters' children and take them to a big empty gymnasium.